Good afternoon, everyone. Weather forecaster fired for criticizing too much use of code red, people becoming desensitized to it, supporters saying, yep, just about getting ratings. Props over here to the big wobble for talking about the heat in Europe, which is heard for the last week and a half, and they also included Tour de France stopped by snow. And we'll see that complete flip and inversion to cold and below normal temperatures all the way down to Spain coming through the first week of August. A link sent in by a viewer of mine, July 29th, statistically the hottest day and driest in Seattle, but this year, highs in the upper 70s. Oh, look at that, hottest day ever, 2009. Wait a second, it should have been hotter this year, shouldn't it have? Warmest year ever. And the main point of the videos I do is how are our crops in the fields going to adjust to the record heat, the record cold, the record heat, the record cold, all coming within weeks of each other? How prepared are you for emergencies? Food, in fact. My Patriot Supply putting out a new 2-week grab-and-go food crate along with the 4-week food supply. The link's in the description box below. Prepare with Adapt 2030. Now, the big wobble usually focuses on heat, but this time I give them very much credit for talking about the heat wave that has swept and now has dissipated from Europe, and also included the stoppage of the Tour de France because of snow. Thank you for including the anomaly. There was a massive drop in temperature in 24 hours, creating incredibly violent weather, and that forced a stop to Tour de France Stage 19. Robert Felix's site, icehnow.info, also picking it up, but he has about 7 different links in there if you want to go check out the images. Now, with all the talk of record heat, there is a massive cold front that's going to sweep down through Europe August 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is the first 2 days you can expect here. Also, another thing that the corporate media seems to overlook is if we go back to 1868, specifically we're talking about England because there was so much focus on England. Release temperatures on July 22nd in 1868 were actually warmer than what occurred over the last week in England, now known as the UK. It's interesting how these facts get missed in such a push for a narrative. Now, case in point, Joe Crane from WICS TV in Springfield, Illinois, calling out the network for using code red too much because people were becoming desensitized to it, so when the real emergencies came, that people would be like, it's just another code red. So he even said this on air. We need to be more diligent when we start to use these warnings. Then they fired him for saying that. Because he expresses disapproval of the code red alerts, he was fired. And again, how many people that believe in what they say are out there that are afraid to talk on the air like this because they will be fired or already have been? So you can see the consolidation of narrative, and whoever will parrot it continues to stay on the air. And a lot of people coming out and support Joe. The alerts aren't to warn us, but to get ratings. Mainstream media newspapers on the decline. Alternative media on the increase. So legacy media out there clawing for clicks. And the amount of support really, thank you for the courage to come out and say that we're overusing this term and people are going to be unprepared. And if you read through the comments that are linked on Twitter, everybody with a sane mind is calling it for what it is. Sensationalist weather forecasts, and it keeps repeating again and again, just for ratings, just for clicks, sensationalist, sensationalism. And a point of interest, there were a handful of others that were so cynical, like, yes, you should have lost your job for saying that. You know, he was trying to warn people in earnest to keep them safe. I guess this is the world we live in today. And I want to thank Jesse for sending me this tip here. July 29th is statistically the hottest, driest in Seattle. And I said, well, let me look at that article. But the highs were only in the upper 70s. And another interesting factoid in this whole story was the hottest day ever recorded, 103 degrees Fahrenheit, 2009. And the only other time it topped 100 degrees was 1994. But I have been told in the media, at least for the last, 25, 30 years, each year is going to get successively hotter. But the inverse seems to be happening. You seem to be backtracking on these temperatures. And here's just a rundown from Electroverse on some of the stories they're carrying just today. Minnesota busting a temperature record at 1898. That's my last video in depth with several other cold records smashed across the United States. Austin, Texas, and so many other places in Texas also set cold temperature records. Moose Jaw, multiple all-time record temperatures fall. That's in Canada, up in Saskatchewan. But see, the reason I bring you this to try to balance the news because it's so warming-centric. You can get 1,000 news articles about the heat, but you really need to scrape and dig to find anything on the cold in the same era. Shout out to Smash-O-Mash. You're definitely going to want to visit the channel here, space weather, climate analysis. What I like is the commentary on the ionosphere and the mapping of the discharge points. The reason I give him a shout out is he gave me a shout out, featuring one of my vids and reposting it up on Gab, where I also have a feed, gab.ai/adapt2030. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. And if you're looking for more information on the Grand Solar Minimum and what we can expect as a timeline moving into the food shortages, Climate Revolution, my new book, Understand, Prepare, Adapt, and Thrive. The link's below in the description box, and I'll see you next video.